So my first night dive, as I said, was at a place called Hol Chan, Holchan, and it was a marine reserve. And Hol Chan was between Ambergris Caye, where we lived at San Pedro, and another small island about 8 miles away called Caye. And Caye was a smaller island. It was a smaller destination, and it was absolutely lovely. And I didn't really get to go to Caye for about the first year, because they've had me working flat out, doing courses, teaching, and starting to learn to help run the business, on the business end of things. Dave was prepping me for, a couple of years down the line, my own dive centre and my own boat, and I didn't realise this at the time. I was just enjoying scuba diving. Anyway, the first night dive, we had 8 divers, including me, and Richie. And Richie took us down to Hol Chan. The boat drive down was lovely. People were chilled. These other people were experienced night divers. They'd come down to Belize several times, and they always dove with Dave. They always went to Dive Dreams. Dave was very famous, and really, really well known. And David always had repeat customers coming by, as did a lot of the other dive shops on the island. They're all very good divers. The local divers, I didn't know quite a lot of them, but and there was quite a lot of jealousy between the local guys and Dave and another guy that was further down the island, south down the island, a guy called Larry Parker, who apparently was the first American, the first white guy to basically scuba dive and have a scuba diver business in San Pedro. The night dive was incredible. Richie always knew the tides. Knowing the tides was important, so Dave would always check on the tides, if the tide was going out, if the tide was coming in. And Hol Chan was on the reef. Hol Chan was on the reef, and it was a bowl, basically, and it was 30 feet in length, but the diameter was I don't really know that, but it was a bowl. It was basically like a bowl, like a goldfish bowl, and it had coral around each side. And on the left hand side, it had a small cave, and in that cave lived eels and a giant jewfish. And I didn't know what a jewfish was until the first night I went on the scuba dive. Of course, you got nurse sharks, and you got the odd bull shark coming in. The odd hammerhead shark would come in, and lemon sharks. And I'd never experienced any of these sharks before. And it probably would have been another 10 or 15 dives later that I would experience my first bull shark. And they can be quite nasty, apparently. I didn't know all this. I think they're like on par with the great white and the tiger shark, so forth. So anyway, we got down to Hol Chan. The tide was coming in, which meant it was going to be a nice dive going around. The floor of Hol Chan was all sand, so we had loads of stingrays buried in the sand. There was just a different atmosphere of the daytime fish to the nighttime fish and the nighttime predators that would come out and prey on them. And we had a little luminescent stick that you broke, and that was on the back of our tanks, and our color was blue, and you could see lots of red and green and oranges around on the other scuba divers. And the reason we had those in our tanks was Richie could distinguish who we were and where we were, and we all had a flashlight. The first night dive for me was fucking hectic, because the divers were so intent on getting macro photographs that they were kicking sand up in front of each other's faces. They were kind of pushing and jostling each other out of the way to get these photographs. My job, as per usual, was to just sit back a little bit and just make sure that everybody stayed in the group. And that was the first time I fucking lost the plot. It was the first time I lost my temper. I got a kick in the face from an over enthusiastic night diver that was from another group that was jostling to get in to look at the eels. There was 2 green eels that lived in this cave also, and they were quite friendly. The scuba divers would pet them. I've seen Dave pick them up like a pet, and they would just sit in Dave's hand, and Dave would stroke and pet them. And they were just used to the scuba divers over the years. I got a kick in the face. My mask was knocked off, my regulator was knocked out, And yeah, I wasn't fucking happy with that at all. So after I retrieved my regulator, cleared it, and got breathing properly again, I got my mask situated on, pressed against my head, tilted my head back, blew the air through my nose and cleared the water out. Fucking, the guy was still in there, and he was a big lanky gangly guy, and he was actually trying to get inside the cave. The cave was about the size of a small car basically, and he was trying to get in and swim through it, and this guy was about fucking 6'4", 6'5", and he's kicking and finning, and his fucking legs are going all over the place, and he kicked me in the chest again, and I just fucking grabbed him by the shorts and pulled his shorts down to his ankles, and he's fucking willying, his meat and two veg were fucking hanging out, and I grabbed him by the feet and I pulled his fins off, and I fucked his fins off to the side, and I pulled this guy out by the tank, and I shook him like a pit bull fucking with a rat, and he was wide-eyed, and he was looking at me, and I was fucking shaking this guy, and I reached up and I pulled his regulator out of his mouth, and he fucking just looked at me and kind of pushed me back, and then he pulled his shorts, he retrieved his regulator, pulled his shorts up and righted himself, and I fucking got in his face and started poking him in the chest like this. And he was a nuisance, he was a fucking liability, and he was dangerous. And so Richie saw the commotion and came over and kind of separated us, and the guy didn't do nothing, he was just, you know, shaking, and he was just, his eyes were wide, he didn't fucking realise what was going on. And Richie called, we were in the water 15 to 20 minutes. Our team, our divers had seen what was going on, and Richie just did this. And they all gave him the okay. We all surfaced, and by the time I got up, this guy was on the surface, and he's spluttering and fucking coughing, and he ended up being a Dutch guy. And I fucking swam over to him, and I grabbed him by the BC again, and I started pushing and shaking him, and I started cussing this guy out, and I said, fucking, you need to fucking understand. I said, there's people already in here, you're fucking pushing in, you kicked me in the face, you kicked my regulator out, you kicked my mask off, you know, all this type of stuff. And, you know, he needed to be aware. I fucking pushed him back, and so his dive master, Richie knew him very well. I can't remember the guy's name, to be honest, but Graniel, he was one of the Graniel brothers who were carpenters who built all the boats on the beach, and he was really cool. He didn't know what was going on. Richie explained to him what was going on, and he gathered his divers and took them back to the boat, and that dive was called Short. I got him on the boat, and I could hear this Graniel guy in a very calm voice telling these guys that if there's people in there or doing something, you have to wait until that area is clear before you go in and mix with other divers, because this is the type of thing that could, you know, that could go wrong. I seen guys with the dive knives out, and they were fucking had dive knives in the hand, and they had them on top of rocks, and they were steadying themselves on top of rocks, and I fucking somebody could have been stabbed. You know, somebody could have turned around, it could have been hustled, somebody could have been stabbed with a knife. You know, so there's all types of bullshit that could have happened, and, you know, all types of accidents were going to happen anyway. So Richie pulled the boat over to young Graniel's boat, and I fucking stared at the guy, and I fucking told him, I says, you're lucky I don't come on that fucking boat and rearrange your fucking teeth. I said, you could have drowned me, you know. I says, you fucking, you know, you knocked my regulator out, and, you know, and I said, it's at night time, and I said, you knocked my mask off, I couldn't, you know. I said, you were fucking kicking, pushing in, and he said, oh, you know, I'm sorry. And I was like, fuck your apologies, fucking, you know, learn to fucking dive. Me telling him to learn to dive, and I only had a few fucking handful of dives. Learn to fucking dive and have some manners, and it was the first time I kind of like lost the plot. And Richie was kind of like, you know, looking at me, and you know, Graniel was apologising and that, and the guy went to shake my hand. I fucked his hand off. I just wasn't going to give him an easy out. Probably should have, but I didn't. And anyway, we sat there, everybody cooled down, we moved to a different anchor point, and Richie sat there, and, you know, he apologised, you know, for the night dive, you know, being short, and we would make it up to the guys again tomorrow, and we would take them on another night dive, and they were all okay with it. They kind of understood, and, you know, one of the guys actually saw me get kicked in the face, and my regulator come out, and my mask come up on my head, and he saw how gangly this guy was, and he says to me, did you pull his shorts down? And I said, yeah. I says, that was the only way I could get the guy's attention. He yanked his shorts down and pulled his fins off. I said, so he wouldn't fucking kick the, you know, the sand up everywhere. So that was my first lesson of a night dive.